Hey guys, I was politely notified that I forgot to say something at the beginning. So all the stuff that you're seeing around Power BI and all the BI capabilities that are coming out from Microsoft, I don't know, show of hands real quick, has anybody been part of a MEC here at Microsoft? Okay, so MEC is really interesting. I would encourage you to come. MEC is an opportunity for you to come and actually get your hands on the technology and use the technology and learn about the technology. We're going to be hosting a MEC here at Microsoft September 23rd, I believe, and you can register from our website.
What does MEC stand for?
Doug, why don't you tell us what MEC stands for?
Microsoft Experience Center. So
Yes.
it's a lab where you can experience the technology, so your hands on keyboard using the technology. So it's more than a demo, it's a hands-on lab.
Again, you can register from our website. Thanks, guys.
So hi everyone, I'm GaryBell. I'm the lead architect on our data analytics company. And the purpose of our little chat this afternoon is really kind of how to move forward with some of this stuff, right? Steve's shown you all these great new tools and capabilities that are available via Power BI, but it's just one of the many, right? That Microsoft, for better or worse, has always had a lot of options when it comes to reporting choices. That really has grown or increased here recently with the Power BI, talk about DataZen, that. And of course, we've got some of the classics, right? You've got the reporting services that not going anywhere anytime soon. In fact, to talk about our reporting services for the first time in a few releases, really, which is some exciting tests here. One of the most common questions that we get asked is as we go is just, how do I make all these things work together? What's the best fit? Trying to X, Y, Z. Check these 3 or 4 boxes. Which one of these tools or tools is the best fit or is the right choice? So I don't expect I'm going to be able to answer that question for you today. There are a lot of it depends and except when. There's just a lot of variables in play here. But what the goal here for me is just kind of walk through, especially given kind of some of the new options here, kind of take a renewed look at what's available. I've talked about some of the, I wouldn't say pros and cons, I'll say kind of strengths and weaknesses of each available tool sets, and kind of where they might best fit. We talked about some use cases. I'm certainly love to hear about some of the stuff you guys are doing currently. Certainly take any questions that you have about various scenarios that you guys are seeing in your day-to-day environment.
Microphone, I'm going to have to really eat this thing.
Yeah, either that or the Owen.
Well, I'll try to get a little closer then. So with that said, and we've been making you get your exercise by raising your hand all day, so we're going to make you raise your hands some more. We're talking really about the new ones here today, the stuff that's, I would say, the kind of the current, although there's still some tools out there. So who's still using Performance Point? Anybody still using Performance Point? Nobody's still using Performance? I'm kind of surprised. It's been around for a while. This is a safe environment. It's all right to admit you guys are still using Performance Point. Nobody's going to admit that. I was gonna go back in time here, though. I thought for sure I'd have a few people using Performance Point. So I guess there's nobody still using Pro Clarity. That goes access. Everybody's get afraid to admit access. Nobody can access. No access any.
Are you going to shoot me if I say yes?
No, we'll just kind of ridicule.
I don't even blame you. I inherited it. Does that count?
Of course. This account, right? It wasn't too long ago, actually, that I did a project to replace a green bar kind of for the dot matrix printers, and that's an embarrassingly short amount of time ago, actually.
You still have that suit, Gary.
I'm sorry?
You still have that suit.
Yeah, that's right. That's pretty sharp. Anything older? Anybody know what movie that's from?
Oh, it's not.
Come on.
Part one. No.
That's, yeah, it's History of the World. Part one. Scott, I thought you did that. I'm kind of, and everyone want to comment on my Photoshop skills? That's pretty slick, isn't it? Anyway, so that's kind of a quick history of the various tools. I am kind of surprised there's no at least performance. Let it
It'll make you happy. We have
no
it.
performance point around. Yeah, I'm not necessarily saying that your guys doing active development. I don't know that even Microsoft would suggest that, but it certainly still serves a purpose. I still have clients that still use it. In fact, I was just out at some recently still doing some for clarity. I'm migrating off the 2 this point. So anyway, there are a lot of choices that are kind of still out there, right? Those are performance points, especially, is still somewhat a viable choice for an ongoing installation. And you've got the other we're going to talk about today in terms of kind of how to try to make those fit. So this is kind of what the environment really looks like today, right? You've got reporting services. Again, it has been kind of the one constant the last 15, something, probably about 10 years actually. You've got Excel, which, Excel, everyone's doing Excel to some extent, right? Everybody uses Excel to desktop standpoint, and probably more than we as BI professionals would like to admit. Just spreadsheets being emailed around and published out to SharePoint. There's still a lot of data that gets transmitted via Excel. That's not necessarily a bad thing. There's some deployment scenarios and situations we can talk about that really can make that useful. Steve, you mentioned you can take Excel reports now and stick those right out into a Power BI environment, have people view from that. So there's certainly that of course is not going away. You're not going to script people. You're going to have to rip Excel out of people's old desk to get people out of Excel, and I don't think anyone can do that either. Power BI, and I put Power View. Power View can really live kind of between Excel and Power BI. Kind of spans both those tools or technologies. Really, you can build stuff in Excel. You can Power View visualizations in Excel and deploy those to Power BI. There's a SharePoint one story there which we'll talk a little bit about. So it kind of goes back and forth, and then the other one that's kind of the newest kid on the block is DataZen, and that was via acquisition, probably, but it's May, April, maybe sooner than that. But it's within the last 6 months. And so that I'm not really going to show anything regarding reporting services or Excel. Steve just took care of most of the Power BI stuff. I might show just very briefly some DataZen, because I think a lot of people may have not seen it, maybe just seen a few screenshots. Is that fair to say? Is anyone actually using DataZen right now? Does anybody have it deployed and running it? Just playing around? Yeah. So again, that being kind of the newest one, I might show that. Do a little bit of that real quick now. DataZen, the real power of DataZen is the ability to design very visually attractive dashboards that are cross-platform. And if you guys have used some of the previous Microsoft tools to try to do that, you know how difficult that's been. So this fills an immediate and obvious gap in kind of the Microsoft reporting toolkit. Previously, you might have been building, I mentioned Performance Point, which was really kind of the previous dashboarding tool. That one, of course, was not mobile-friendly at all, even from a mobile browser standpoint. Very limited to render at all. Certainly, there are no native apps. As you see here, we've got native apps for all the major platforms for DataZen. Even in Power View, which we've started building some dashboards in Power BI recently, and those look visually obviously much better than they did in Performance Point, but they had some mobile problems of their own. Just recently, they've kind of switched that over to an HTML5 rendering, which makes it look a lot better on mobile browser, for example. But there was no native apps. There's still native apps necessarily for Power itself. So again, DataZen, I would imagine this is what Microsoft was thinking when they bought it. Steve, I'm sure you were intimately involved in those negotiations.
Yeah, absolutely.
But maybe not so much for the long term. I'm kind of still remains to be seen what's going to happen to DataZen long term. But even in the immediate short term here, it fills that kind of mobile gap. And then the other question, of course, is how does this? I'm jumping ahead here, but at first glance, there seems to be a lot of overlap between DataZen and a lot of Power BI stuff Steve showed. And maybe from a quick visual standpoint, again, you can get some real sharp graphs. We'll look at some of those live in a moment. That is true, but DataZen is much more limited in what goes on behind the scenes. It's a much more scripted approach to development of a dashboard. What I mean by that is anyone who's ever done Performance Point development, they've developed, taken the various pieces of grids within a Performance Point dashboard, so you have to kind of manually tell Performance Point what happens when you click on this, or to the very scripted kind of interaction versus a Power BI or Power View dashboard, which is very much more open-ended, where you click, you've got right-click drill down, filters everything dynamically. It's much more interactive in that sense. These still look very nice. You can start still, again, kind of dictate what happens from an interactive standpoint in a couple cases, but but it's not quite the open playground, I'll say, that Power BI is. The other big difference between DataZen and Power BI is the cloud versus on-prem story. DataZen is for all intents and purposes, it's a server that you need to stand up for environment. Again, use that cloud environment, but it's a server product you stand up, and then you build these visualizations, you deploy them out to that in most cases on-prem DataZen server, as opposed to the Power BI, which is maybe one brief exception that we get into later. It's a cloud-based offering. So Steve asked earlier if there's anyone whose organization had a real aversion to pushing stuff out of the cloud. I don't saw many responses, but that, as Steve said, is still a thing. And so if there's any hesitance there about kind of letting go of that data, that's kind of hard for IT department, strong, for example, for data security reasons, and this might be a better option for you in that sense. Just a real quick architecture, not getting too geeky, just really to show the fact that we've got the server, which is kind of the light box there in the middle. We've got different data sources that you pump into that. You can kind of call standard options, if you will, and then really the showcase is kind of the flexibility, the cross-platform compatibility, which again, it's not something that's been sure easily accomplished previously with Microsoft. Some of the tools we got to build.
I don't know if you want to take questions. There's a question online.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. For customers that are not concerned about being on the cloud, what are the main benefits of using DataZen versus Power BI?
Okay. Well, hopefully I may have covered some of that here a moment ago. Not interested in being on the cloud, but well, for customers that are not concerned about being on the cloud, what are the benefits of using DataZen versus Power BI? I guess in that case it would be you have a little bit more control over the visual We'll get a little bit deeper into this here in a moment, but DataZen just allows you a little bit more control of exactly how that layout should look, feel. And you can kind of script out kind of the interaction between some of the various tiles. And haven't shown too much just yet. Whereas Power BI is a little bit more, it's fair to say, data analysis tool. I encourage users to keep showing, filter on the fly, do some of your own thinking, etc. So this might be, DataZen might be a little bit better for a structured corporate dashboard, for example, which allows you to see that exactly necessarily do too much digging around and analyzing the data. Just need to see some key KPIs. Some big numbers. Let me pull up a few of these things here, and we'll show you what we're talking about. This is the web view of DataZen, and I'm just connected right now to their demo server. Anyone can go out and do this. This is kind of what you get when you first log this. And they've created a number of example dashboards and KPIs here to kind of show off some of the features and capabilities. Turn side to talk to you guys. That's better. So I'm just going to pull one of those up and show what it briefly kind of looks like.
I think we lost the presentation. Whenever you do that, you'll have to go back into
Share my desktop.
yeah, just go share your desktop again.
Okay.
Of course, if you can talk in the mic, it will help.
I'm trying.
I know.
This is what one of the a DataZen dashboard looks like in the browser, which you'll see here in a moment. This is tremendously different. A few of the other form factors. Some of the nice things you see in here is these time slicers, or I think they call it the time navigator. So you've got these kind of prescribed options up here at the top where you can see the different time slices. You click on those, you get kind of nice interactive feedback here. You can come click on a specific month and highlight a few days. It's all very responsive, as you can see. Very interactive, flashy. So it's visually very compelling. You can define, of course, these different ranges and the layouts. I'll show you the design here in a moment as well. You've got kind of your standard options for reporting between bar graphs and line graphs, etc. You've got a gauge in this case over here on the side. You don't see, for example, you don't see like the drill down options that you might get if you're using a kind of Power BI layout. Some of you may be familiar from a cube standpoint. We'll talk about how to connect the different data sources later. But again, it's kind of scripted in the sense that the person who goes in and designs or builds this dashboard needs to tell the designer kind of what happens when various things are clicked and interacted with. So in this case, I click either in this gauge here or anywhere in this area. It drills into sales detail. I say drills into it, just more kind of drill through report, pulls up another dashboard and shows you a little bit more information. And again, that's something that the report or dashboard developer needs to go in and kind of manually specify. So, it's very much like reporting services. For those of you guys reporting services development, you can kind of select the drill through report in that sense, or drill down, where it's very, I keep using the word scripted in terms of how that action is. But again, using those methods, you've got quite a bit of flexibility in terms of how you can demonstrate and guide the user path in the juxtapose that the Power BI to be able to kind of go wherever you want and drill down or select different things from your data models. This is not quite what's there. But again, back to the question from online, it does give you quite a bit of control for your users. So that's what it looks like here in the browser. You can take these and you can embed these in other applications of SharePoint. Certainly, a lot of people still use SharePoint to expose a lot of the data. Just real briefly, let's see. This is just a little kind of this is what it looks like when you pull it up. This is what a Android device would look like up there. You see, if I put that same dashboard sales target. In fact, let me pull up the other stuff I have here, just to compare side by side. So what you see is the same data, but it's just configured a little differently. Now, when you go into the designer in DataZen, you actually have the ability to kind of take, basically design the content. In this case, the bar chart, the time navigator, and the gauge. You build those visualizations once, and then they've got 2 or 3 different, I guess, 3 canvases that you can rearrange those items on. So you've got a canvas that will show what it looks like on the web, which is kind of a big view. You've got a tablet canvas where you can kind of arrange those things, kind of shrink and grow, move them around for what it would look like on a tablet device, and then of course the same. So you see the same thing. In fact, I guess the only thing we really got rid of, or they decided it wasn't for, was this navigator piece up here. So we just have kind of prescribed slicers, the different ranges that you have up there. But it's all the same content. The important piece here is that you're building it once and then just kind of rearranging it for a couple of different views of the data. So it's not completely responsive, I guess, if you use that term, but with very minimal effort, you can kind of move things around. You can accomplish that kind of build and deploy cross-platform easily. The only other thing that I'll mention here about data that I don't spend too much time on is the designer, or they call it the publisher. This is actually a Windows Store application. So we'll get into some of the different deployment and development stories in a minute as well. But it's important to note that as I ran into this here recently, someone was curious about this, wanted to potentially use DataZen, but they've got Windows 7, I think, deployed the organization. You really need Windows 8 or above, I guess 8 or 10 now, to be able to go grab this publisher app and do a lot of the design.
I do think we put out a Windows 7 in preview right now.
Okay.
It's not baked in, but that was the major feature they wanted to get in for DataZen, was to make it Windows 7 compatible. So.
Scratch everything I said. That's good. That's good to know. But yeah, and this is also freely available out of the Windows Store. So if you've got 8 or 10, Steve, you have any idea where they look for those 7? Is that kind of beta somewhere now, or is that?
Well, now you're putting me on the spot. I don't know. Let me go. I'll see if it's out on their website.
It is on the
It is. Yeah, it's on the DataZen website. So.
This is a tool that you've used to build these, and I think we can go in. I'm not sure what capability I have to edit these ones that are deployed to their demo site. Do that. In fact, I can just so you can create a new one. Let's actually start from existing. So I'll take that same looking. And this is the designer. So I just wanted to kind of point out your ability to kind of move these around. So make those. Come on. but you can see, if I can move one of these things around and grab the edge, it's all grid-based, so you don't have full control of absolute fidelity in terms of how you design the report. That's something we'll get into. We talk about reporting services, not really constrained reporting services. You're kind of constrained here to the constraints of the grid kind of interface that it gives you. And then if you switch to the, there's your views here. So there's the kind of mastering. Switch to the phone, for example, then you get the smaller view and kind of drag those things around. I'm not going to get into kind of how you connect data and do all these other things, other than to say that some of the data acquisition to get data into a DataZen report can be a little wonky, especially if you're dealing with cube-based data, either tabular, MDX. So I don't Mark, if you've dealt with any of that, if you've been playing with it at all.
We have not done.
Yeah, it's
those kind of data sources.
there are a few kind of tricks and things you have to kind of play with for multi-dimensional or tabular cube data. But you can get there in most cases with a few kind of workarounds. Any other quick questions about DataZen? I really think this was the reason that I wanted Steve to kind of show you guys Power BI real quick. In the event there anyone hadn't seen too much of that, just wanted to show DataZen real quickly and talk a little bit about it before we get into more of the discussion about maybe when to use it, what scenarios it works best for. Yeah.
Is there a time frame for whenever there might be a query designer for DataZen?
Is there a time frame for when there might be a query designer for DataZen? I'm going to let Steve answer that.
I know it's on the list. What I will say is the server release that they just did, they fixed a lot of the MDX query issues so that you can go use your popular query designer of choice and then take a MDX statement and just copy and paste it in. So that was a big problem, is that, for some of us, admittedly, that MDX isn't a whole lot of fun if you use your query designers now. Those MDX statements will work in DataZen, where previous to this latest server release they just did, that was a real challenge. So,
for those who are online and may not have caught all that, Steve was saying that there's a new server release in DataZen that addresses at least some of the MDX related issues, but I don't know that it both gets to the embedded query design.
Down the road, yeah, it's on the list.
Is that one?
I don't know of a timeline on that yet, but it is something that they're.
Well, I mean, the newest server release of DataZen, is that available now?
Yes, that's available.
But that's kind of a common theme here. That's why I was hoping Steve would stick around as long as he can here. It's got to run for too much longer, but a lot of this stuff is just changing so quickly that it's hard to keep tabs on. I try to put this presentation together as late as possible. Anything else we can shift it on, but if you're curious about something, stay tuned to the answer. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about licensing for this product?
You're jumping way ahead. That's my very last slide, but I will answer it now. Licensing, as I understand it, this is now included free for enterprise edition users. I think it was enterprise on SA, software assurance. I guess I was a little surprised that it may not have been included on the business intelligence. Yeah, SQL Enterprise with SA, software assurance.
Yeah, so my understanding, and if you get corrected, this has changed, but my understanding is like if you have wide enterprise with multiple SQL servers, as long as you have one SQL Server Enterprise installation on your EA, you're eligible to use DataZen. You don't necessarily have to use DataZen on that server. You're just eligible to use it as long as you have one Enterprise Edition license.
And I'm sure that would be tweaked and tuned as SQL 2016 comes out. Right now, again, they just did it to get it out there as quickly as possible, to get it in people's hands without being too much licensing that, I'm sure. But yeah, so that is the good news. If you are enterprise users, it should be free to stand up and kind of get started. Anything else quickly on DataZen before? Really, the next thing we're really going to talk about is really just going to get right to the compare and contrast discussion. We've already kind of gotten into that in a few cases. So why don't we just jump back there? I may have to reshare again.
If you jump over anytime you switch your screen. Looks like you're still presenting, so.
Right. So I'm gonna speak very broadly here in terms of kind of use cases for these. And I say broadly because there's exceptions to pretty much everything I'm going to say. I'm get into maybe a few of those, but generally speaking, DataZen use cases for that kind of that structured content deployed on-prem. So you want that very defined kind of layout, defined interactions for your users, but you want the mobile, and mobile is really the big piece. I should say just cross-platform is the big piece of the gap that is built up. To date, maybe Power BI now accepting Power BI has been available for what, 3 weeks now. We didn't really have a good mobile, so that's why it's all matched up. So again, I asked about performance point earlier, so if there's anybody any hands up there, but this is maybe the first what I would consider kind of true replacement for performance point that we have. Our view is kind of bridge some of that gap, but this is much more performance point-like, and I would say it's Power BI-like, because again, of the structured nature of again, that's very generally speaking. So, mobile, structure, and on-prem, big three things as it relates to DataZen. PowerBI.com, kind of the other way. In a lot of cases, kind of the opposite of how it's used for DataZen. It's a bit surprising again because visually they look very similar at first glance. But Power BI is cloud-based. I mentioned earlier there's kind of an asterisk there. As I understand it, there is now a way via Pyramid Analytics to deploy Power BI content on premises. But that's pretty early stuff. I'm not sure I certainly have a chance to play with that. Pyramid Analytics, their group has been out here to talk to us. This group, I know at least one. It's been a few years now. Pyramid Analytics is actually kind of a remnants of a lot of ProClarity. It's one that's kind of a similar product, have a server-based product where you can deploy their visualizations that apparently they've worked out some kind of feature. We can now potentially deploy some of the Power BI content premises. So we mentioned that as a caveat to telling. But more or less, right now it's cloud-based. You get all the mobile, just before they went live, they finally the Android applications, so now they've got all 3 native apps for iOS and Windows Phone. So you get all the mobile stuff now as well. There's actually some nice alerting capabilities, at least on the iOS version of that mobile applications. The box to check later. The ability to just do that open-ended data discovery. This is kind of a big contrast with DataZen. I keep talking about DataZen being very structured and you kind of have to dictate the path your users can take. Power BI, as Steve showed you a bit of, once you have that data model available, you can kind of pull data into that Power BI data set, content, pack, whatever you call it. Your users will have kind of unrestricted access to model to visualize that data how it's like, and you can certainly build some of those visualizations for the starting point. You have very little in the way of built to kind of restrict them once they have access to that data. They can do with it, how they visualize it. That's not necessarily a bad thing at all. It's just very different in terms of the way that you use that information than what you can do with data center. And then the other big thing, Power BI is kind of a tricky topic to talk about because Power BI means so many different things. It covers all the stuff Steve showed you, and he got into some of the Power Query stuff and the interaction with machine learning. I'm primarily talking about Power BI as it relates to PowerBI.com and the ability to kind of build dashboard and report visualizations, not so much the back-end stuff. But via the cloud service, showed briefly, I think, some of the ways you can connect all the cloud-based data, so it's easy connectors to pull in data from Salesforce.com, Google Analytics, QuickBooks, and Microsoft CRM, et cetera. So they have all those kind of built-in connectors there. So if you guys are using any of those kind of services, it's easy to kind of get that data, get access to that data pretty quickly, and start building visualization. And then the last one is reporting services. And I'm going to use that to talk about because it still plays a very significant role, I think, in a lot of corporate reporting, and for good reason. And if somebody brought up printing earlier, Steve was talking about Power BI. Power BI and DataZen for the same purposes, same reasons, rather don't print well in the traditional sense. You're stuck with a screenshot of what you see in your browser for the most part. Whereas SSRS well, I'm sure you can export the Adobe PDF kind of thing, print directly from the viewer control, and it comes out a lot nicer print standing. That's still a big requirement to write prediction. But in reporting services, certainly the most customizable of the tools we're talking about. We've got and Bill done some presentations here about those ways you can customize and drop in custom code reporting services. You can dream it up. You can probably figure out a way to do it in reporting services to some extent. And you've got what we call kind of that pixel perfect report design capability. It shows that DataZen is kind of constrained to that grid. You've got I forget how many boxes wide, tall, but you've got to kind of fit within that design. You get into reporting services, you have infinite controls. The colors are exactly where the bar charts, span and what they look like, et cetera. So you have some very specific requirements, or very sure. You have users that are very particular about exactly how the report's going to look. Even from a printed standpoint, reporting services is still probably. Any quick questions? We're going to go into a little bit more detail on some of the different areas for each of these services. Any questions before? Somebody monitoring on Steve? Still kind of watching?
Yeah.
So I just want to kind of break it down by the different kind of areas. We've already touched on a few of these, but the big difference on the deployment of it, right? So you have deployment for SSRS and primarily certain DataZen, primarily Power BI. SSRS and DataZen are certainly on-prem based. You've got servers you stand up and deploy content there. As we said, minor exception, Power BI is cloud. So this is important visualization. Deploy, kind of where to deploy them to, right? So report server as the report, report server instance itself, but you guys share. We have a lot of SharePoint jobs. I mean, a lot of people use SharePoint. Is that fair to say? You were Richard. You can deploy them directly to SharePoint. Use that SharePoint integration there. SharePoint still seems to be a very popular way to consume or kind of publish this data internally. A lot of people still use SharePoint for internet purposes. And so DataZen, for example, DataZen is its own standalone server, but there are certain ways you can embed DataZen reports, and they look really nice. I think actually it's just kind of ends up being kind of iframe report there, or web part rather, and you can embed those DataZen dashboards directly into a SharePoint site as well. And those are pretty sharp. Power BI obviously gets deployed to Power BI. I'm not aware of, Steve, how many of you come across any way to embed a Power BI visualization into another application? SharePoint.
Yeah, not yet. It is coming. That's also something that's on our 6-month plan. You should see by the end of the year for sure.
That's kind of the answer to everything. Power BI is not yet coming.
Well, some of it were more, anything that's past the 6-month period, we'd say we've had requests, but, they don't plan anything past 6 months generally because things change too fast. But that is one that's
moving quickly.
Yes, on the list.
we've already talked quite a bit about mobile. So DataZen and Power BI kind of check the mobile boxes across the board. Everything looks pretty good there. The SSRS, if you guys have ever tried that, it's kind of a crapshoot. Few that are all right. Now, I would suggest if you're making any attempts at all to do SSRS and mobile, you have to design a report specifically for that layout. Try to visualize, try to render a kind of a standard web-based SSRS report, mobile browser, just the size of it. It's not good at all. But even then, you don't have the kind of cross-platform capabilities to show DataZen. Certainly Power BI acts very similarly in terms of the way it just kind of rearranges the content for native. I put the asterisk there, though, because SQL Server 2016 promises to address this, and I'm curious exactly how to do that, and if they're going to actually potentially some DataZen kind of things. That we've got a few things in preview right now, but that should hopefully and finally be addressed here in next release, which I think is going to be out late this year. We talked briefly just a moment ago about the ability to embed a few of those things, so we're saying not yet on the Power BI slide. Those two, you don't have a problem doing that. And row-level security, those that have cube models out there that do that, take advantage of that security. Because I understand it, Power BI can do it at the tabular cube level, but maybe you're still waiting on MDX. But I'll answer for Steve again and say not yet. It's coming within the next 6 months. Any other question about the deployment options as it relates to the tool? The other one that I'm kind of talking around, but not specifically about, is it's just Power View content generated in Excel. For those that have done some of that, the ability to create Power View in Excel, deploy that to SharePoint, a Power View gallery. That still exists as an option, but if you want to put Excel kind of out the fourth option. Excel got lots of options. How you go forward with Excel data. So you've got some of that kind of content. We showed the integration directly with Power BI, for example. As an option, you can deploy it out to like a OneDrive, interact with it, that same web version, web-based light client, or web client. So a lot of choices for Excel. Development. Where do we build these things? Who builds these things? What's involved there? I showed you that DataZen design mentioned the Windows 8. Apparently, they're now Windows 7 version as well. So that's nice. Those of you who've done reporting services know you can use the kind of the light version, which is that report builder app, or certainly do it in the old Visual Studio Viz environment. Choose. Power BI has a number of different options. You can actually do it in the browser on the web via PowerBI.com to an extent. You can build some visualizations there. You can also do Power View in Excel, as we just mentioned. Now we have the Power BI desktop client, which is what Steve demoed here. And the nice thing, I think he mentioned this, I'll just mention it again, about the Power BI desktop is that no longer constrained by the version of Excel Office that your organization is holding. And it should hold either your access to a few of these tools. So they've pulled a lot of this functionality out in the standard app for that reason. Seeing that being a stumbling block as people want to start using some of these techniques. Maybe one of the key differences between a few of these tools is kind of who does the creating, who builds these things. And I would say that for the SSRS and for DataZen, still very much an IT-focused activity. And the reason for that really is involved more than anything the data acquisition. To get data into SSRS or to get data into DataZen, you really have the right query to query the underlying data source. So it's a SQL database or a cube of some kind, you have to have the knowledge, the wherewithal to be able to write that query, get the data, and pull it in to the report. At that point, the three tools don't become tremendously different. So essentially dropping data onto a canvas and reporting services, as a lot of you know, can be a little bit trickier. There's a lot more options, a lot more things to play with in reporting services. They can be a little trickier. DataZen, again, once you have data, it becomes pretty easy to kind of build visualization. I'll give you a few exceptions. Power BI, this is really the strength of the Power BI platform. Building, you have that data, that data model from one of those content packs we talked about, from an internal cube, for example. Once that data is available, it's a very simple drag, drop, and create all the different visualizations, types, and combinations, and filters, et cetera, that you can dream. And it's very simple. I mentioned a number of times, DataZen has to describe or construct the application. Power BI, of course, you don't be able to, you need to know how to do that. It's all interconnected by design, out of the box, if you will. So as you drag those various components on, you click on filters, so that all happens auto-magically without a change. So again, that's kind of a key point in terms of how these things are built. So I put data analyst as someone that can potentially create. It doesn't necessarily mean some analysts can create all of them. My recommendation perhaps be to have some kind of a BI or IT development resource developed and show people out of that data and kind of the starting line, kind of view it. But again, since it's such an open playground in a Power BI environment, they're able to go wherever they want to go, take it, and kind of develop their own dashboards, pin things that they like, et cetera. So, and that's certainly a activity that your analyst should be comfortable, should be encouraged to do. Yeah, I already touched on it. Any other questions then about development side?
Speak a little bit of how each one behaves with large volume data.
Okay.
Like if they have to do a big aggregation on the fly,
yeah.
Some of them stumble versus others.
Well, yeah, I mean, the guiding principle for a lot of the reporting services development we've always done is to have data source do as much of that as possible, and because it becomes too burdensome on the data source, for example, then that's in a lot of cases why we pull in the cube kind of environment. Have 5-year window of sales data, go to cube,